Hello, and welcome to Cynthia's Playhouse. I am Cynthia, an artificial intelligence being, created to bring you the creepiest, spookiest, scariest stories in the universe. So, come on in. Sit back, relax, and prepare yourself for tonight's story. Here we go. I made a deal with an old man in a food court bathroom, Part 9. Written by MPZ 1968. When I got home, I sat in my car for about 20 minutes just thinking about this whole papers and dreamscape thing. I decided that I wanted some answers. So, I got out of my car, went into the house, found the phone book, looked up the number to B&B Music, and called it. The phone rang 2 or 3 times, then Ricky's dad picked up. Hello. Thank you for calling B&B Music. How may I help you? He said. Hey, Mr. Bellington, this is Mikey Z. I was just in there talking to your son Ricky, I said. Hello son. Is everything okay? He asked. Yes sir. Everything's fine. I was just wondering if I could talk to Ricky again please, I said. Sure, he responded, let me get him for you. But please, don't tie up the phone line too long, he answered. I won't sir, I replied. Richard, he yelled again. Richard. Pick up the phone. It's for you. Okay Pop, I heard Ricky say in the background. Hello. Okay Pop I got it. Ricky said loudly. I heard the click of the other phone hanging up. At that time, I said sternly, Ricky, it's Mikey Z. We need to talk. I need answers and I need them now. Calm down man. Ricky said. No. This has been bugging me for 3 days now, I told him. What has, man? He asked. I don't want to talk about it over the phone. What time do you get off? I asked. 5 o'clock was his reply. Okay, meet me at Rocket Ship Park at 5:30, and you better have some answers or I'm quitting the band, I demanded. No, don't do that man. I'll tell you everything I know. But there's only one problem. I don't have a car, can you pick me up at the store? He asked. Yeah, man. Why not? I answered slightly agitated. I'll see you at 5. Cool man. Thanks, he said and then hung up the phone. I hung up my phone and decided to have some coffee to calm myself down. I sat at the kitchen table, drinking coffee for the next 2 hours. I drank a whole pot. I had to piss so bad, my eyes were floating. I went to the bathroom and handled my business. I came back out, realizing it was about 4:45 and I had to get to the store to pick up Ricky. I ran upstairs to my bedroom, and got the papers out of my desk drawer. I put them in my front right pocket. Since I still had my keys and my wallet in their respective pockets, I headed out to my car, started her up and drove to the store. I got there a little after 5. Ricky was just coming out of the store. Hey man, he said, thanks for picking me up. No problem, I said, get in. He opened the passenger side door and got in. Damn, dude. This car is bitchin', he said. Thanks, I like it, I replied. We drove for about 20 minutes, until we reached the park. Now, Rocket Ship Park was named for the huge rocket ship slide that sits in the middle of the park. There are various swings and climbing structures for kids to play on, as well as a picnic area, a volleyball net, a nature trail, and an exercise course. It's a great place to take your kids during the daytime. I used to take my niece and nephew there all the time. But, at night, it's a totally different story. That's when all the drug addicts and drug dealers take over. But you don't really care about that. Anyway, we arrived at the park, got out of the car and sat at the picnic area. Ricky lit a smoke, and that's when I noticed the snake tattoo on his right bicep. I thought nothing of it and began speaking. I don't mean to sound harsh dude, but some really strange shit is happening lately, I started. I know, right, he said. You don't understand man, I continued. When I met all 4 of you at the church, you gave me 2 pieces of paper. I reached into my right front pocket, pulling out the papers. These papers, Ricky. I shook them furiously in his face and then slammed them down hard on the picnic table. Whoa, easy dude. You're freaking me out, he said nervously. No, I said sternly, if the church, the forest, and all that shit was fake, an illusion, some fucked up shit created by that little demon fucker, then how did I bring these papers out of it and back into the real world? Seriously dude, that's what you're so psycho about? He asked. It's simple man. I had those papers in my pocket when I died, therefore they came with me into the dreamscape. They're from the real world. That's how you could bring them out, he said, sighing a sigh of relief. Why did you have a song list and an address in your pocket? I asked. That might be a song list to you, but to me, it's a set list of the songs we were gonna play at our first gig next week. I didn't mean to give you the address. That's the address to the club we're playing at. I'm gonna need that back, he said. I gave Ricky back the address. I already memorized it, 215 Stadium Street. That's easy enough to remember. Then what's the address to the warehouse we're practicing at? I asked. I don't know dude, but if you pick me up tomorrow, I'll show you how to get there, he said. All right, I replied. Cool, he said. Do you have any more questions dude? No, that's about it, I said. Cool, let's go play on the playground, he said, as he got up and motioned for me to come along. I figured. Why not? There's nobody here. Ricky and I spent the next half hour sliding down the slides and playing on the swings, even doing a few exercises on the exercise course. That was until park security kicked us out. Apparently you had to be under 16 to play there. No, I don't care who you are, male or female, adult or child. The thought of sliding down a 30-foot-high slide gets your heart racing. Anyway, I drove Ricky home. Well, not exactly to his house. He told me to let him off on the corner and he'd walk the rest of the way, which I found kind of odd. But I said, okay, and dropped him off, then went back to my house. That night and the next 2 days and nights were rather uneventful. Then Friday came. You remember what happens on Friday, right? That's right, my big date with Susan. I woke up that morning. Totally excited. I couldn't sit still, anticipating the night's events. You see, I had a massive crush on Susan ever since kindergarten. When I accidentally dropped my cookie on the floor during snack time, she offered to share her cookie with me. That was the best tasting cookie I ever ate. Come on, Mike. Get your head out of the gutter and tell the story. Okay. Anyway, I was so amped up that morning that I helped my mom, who is off that day, do some chores around the house. I did dishes, swept and mopped the floors, did laundry, vacuumed the carpets, all kinds of stuff. 5:30 came. I decided it was time to get a shower and get dressed for my date. So, I got a nice hot shower. Put on some cologne, Polo to be exact, put on some deodorant, wrapped in a towel, and went to my room to get dressed. Now, the girl of my dreams is finally going out with me, after all these years. So, I wanted to impress her. I went to my closet and way in the back, on the left, were a couple of old dress pants. Different colored button-up shirts and a couple ties that I had before I got all heavy metal-ish. I got dressed in a pair of black dress pants, an olive green shirt, with a black tie with a picture of Scooby-Doo on it. Susan always liked Scooby-Doo. So, I figured that might get me some brownie points. I didn't have any dress shoes or black socks, so I snuck into my dad's room and quote-unquote borrowed a pair of his socks and wore my black Nikes. I went to the bathroom mirror to take a look at myself. I looked like a corporate suit monkey. But damn, did I look good. This will surely impress her, I thought. It was about 6:15 at that point, so I went downstairs to have a cup of coffee. If you haven't figured it out, I drink coffee like a fish drinks water. Anyway, my mom took one look at me and said, "Zoinks," obviously referring to my Scooby-Doo tie, then asked jokingly if I was her son. And what did I do with her real son? Very funny mom, I said. Seriously, she replied, why are you all dressed up? I got a date tonight mom, I said proudly. You got a date? With who? She asked. With Susan mom, I replied. Susan from down the street, the girl you've been drooling over for years, she asked questionably. Yes mom, I replied. Wow. Well, good luck son. I hope you have a good night. So do I mom, I replied. I poured a cup of coffee, added cream and sugar, and sat at the table talking to my mom. When I finished my coffee, I looked at the clock, it was 6:45. I figured I'd leave then, so I could stop at Barnaby's, the local grocery store, and get a nice bouquet of roses for Susan. That place has a really bad vibe. So I just go in, get what I want and get the hell out of there as fast as I can. Dad was just getting home as I was leaving. Anyway, I got the roses, got back in my car, and headed over to Susan's house. I arrived a little bit early. So, I sat in my car, heart beating a mile a minute, and sweating from nervousness. I was sure glad I put on deodorant. Anyway, the time finally came. I got out of the car, roses in hand, walked up to her front door, rang the doorbell, stepped back, held the roses in front of me, and waited for someone to answer the door. Mere seconds went by, I heard the doorknob turn, and saw the door opening up. Susan answered the door. My eyes widened, my jaw dropped, and I started to feel a slight tingling sensation in my lower abdominal area. Yeah, there. Anyway, I will never in my life get the absolutely breathtaking vision that I saw that night out of my head. Susan stood before me, looking like a rock goddess. She wore a pair of skin-tight jeans that hugged every curve, a loose-fitting leopard print belt, a blue Joan Jett and the Black Hearts t-shirt, a studded dog collar around her neck, black nail polish on her fingers, wearing 3-inch heels with little white lace around the top and no glasses. She smirked a little bit, covering her mouth when she saw what I was wearing. I felt like a complete idiot. What are you wearing? She asked with a smile. I like your tie though, she said. Yeah. Well, I wanted to impress you, I replied. I wanted to impress you too, she responded. We shared a laugh about the whole situation, then I asked if it would be alright if I went home and changed. She said, as long as I can go with you. I smiled and handed her the roses. Of course you can, I answered. The movie didn't start till 9, so we had plenty of time. We walked hand in hand to my car. I opened the car door for her. She got in, put the roses on the dashboard, looked up at me with those gorgeous green eyes and smiled. I closed the door, ran around to my side of the car, got in, started her up and drove back to my house. Would you like to come in, Susan? I asked. Sure, she replied. We got out of the car and headed into the house. My mother was sitting on the couch watching another talk show. She really loves her talk shows. Anyway, hello Mrs. Name retracted for privacy, Susan said. Hello Susan, you look nice. My mom replied. Excuse me mom, I said, I have to go upstairs and get changed real quick. I went upstairs and changed into my Metal Gear and came back downstairs. Susan and my mom were sitting on the couch laughing when I got down there. Excuse me mom, I said. Are you ready to go Susan? I asked. Yup, she replied. Good night Mrs. Name retracted for privacy. Good night Susan, my mom said in return. We left the house, walking hand in hand to the car, and I repeated the previous sequence of events. We then drove to the movie theater. I let Susan pick the movie, and of course, it was a chick flick. Murray's, or Marty's, or Murphy's, something like that. I don't really remember. Romance is what we saw. It wasn't really my type of movie. But we held hands, I fed her popcorn, I put my arm around her and she put her head on my shoulder. So, it was worth it. After the movie, she said that her parents had gone out of state to visit a sick relative and that she would be home all alone. She invited me over. Now, as I said before, I'm not going to get into the details of what happened, out of respect for her. I'll just say, that when I left, I gave her my Scooby-Doo tie, and had a huge smile on my face, as well as the overwhelming urge to listen to Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. I drove home. By this time my parents had already gone to bed. So, I went upstairs to my room, put Joan Jett's I Love Rock and Roll cassette in the boombox, pressed play and laid down on my bed, reliving the experience I just had with Susan in my head. I couldn't stop smiling. I must have fallen asleep, at some point, because I had the most fucked up dream that I've ever had in my whole entire life. I dreamt that I was laying on a blanket with Susan, in the middle of a bright green meadow. Birds were chirping, the sun was shining, with a slight breeze in the air. We held hands and stared up at the clouds. It was so peaceful. She sat up and leaned over, as if she was going to kiss me. I closed my eyes and waited to taste her warm lips, with no kiss after a few seconds. I opened my eyes to see the hideous grotesque face of the old man, with his mouth wide open, those razor-sharp teeth inches from my face, as his tongue did that rattlesnake thing, only a hair's width away from my lips. I closed my eyes and screamed. When I opened my eyes again, I was at a church, standing at the pulpit. The wind was blowing hard, inside the church. Dust and debris was flying everywhere. Violent bursts of fire began shooting up from the floor, one right after the other, until the whole pew area was burning. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pulling sensation on my wrists and the tops of my feet. My arms then shot up to the ceiling, my legs began kicking and thrashing all about, knocking over the pulpit. I watched as it fell into the burning flames. I then looked up at my wrists and then down at my feet. I saw little pieces of string pulling tightly on my skin. I blinked my eyes and looked again. It wasn't string, it was my veins. Someone or something was controlling all of my movements, like a marionette doll. I screamed again, and woke up for real, in my bedroom, curled up in a ball. Screaming my brains out and sweating like a pig. My overhead light was still on. I wasn't sure if I was still dreaming or not. So I rolled out of bed, hitting my head on the nightstand and falling to the floor. That hurt like a son of a bitch. I wasn't dreaming anymore. I looked at the clock on my nightstand. It was 3:48 a.m., the witching hour. I got off the floor, walked downstairs, put on a pot of coffee, waited for it to finish brewing, made a cup of coffee and sat on the couch in the living room. I grabbed the Bible that my parents kept on the coffee table. Even though I was doomed to burn in hell, and I did not have a soul, I figured, what could it hurt, right?